Now we develop web application. Then the question comes is how do you test or what do you do for testing the web application or web based testing? What does it include? So first we need to assess the web quality, that is the content are evaluated at both syntactic and semantic levels, and the function are tested to uncover lack of conformance to the requirement. First of all, the structure is assessed to ensure proper content and function they are delivered or not, and the usability is tested to ensure that each category of user can be supported as a new content or functionality when it is added. Then the navigability, because web app is all about navigation. Navigability is tested to ensure that all navigation syntax and semantics are being exercised. The performance is tested under a variety of operating conditions, configurations, and the loading to ensure a reasonable level of user response, and the compatibility testing by executing your web application using a variety of client and server configurations. Then the interoperability. This is tested to ensure proper interfaces to other applications and databases. And the security is tested by assessing potential vulnerabilities and trying to exploit each of them. What are the concerns with the web errors? Many types of web app test, they uncover problems evidenced on the client side using a specific interface, maybe an error symptom or not the error itself. So it may be difficult to reproduce errors outside of the environment in which the error was originally encountered. So many errors can be traced to the web app configuration, incorrect design, and improper HTML. Again, many errors can be traced out as the web app configuration was not made properly, the design was incorrect, and of course the improper HTML. It is hard to determine whether errors are caused by a problem with the server or the client or the network itself. So some errors are attributable to problems in the static operating environment, and some are attributable to dynamic operating environment, because web app acts in both static and dynamic, and there are so many things which are involved. So in order to test the web application, web app content model is reviewed for any errors. The interface model is reviewed to ensure all use cases are accommodated. Design model for web app is reviewed to uncover navigation errors, and user interface is tested to uncover presentation errors or navigation mechanics problem. So to for any error, that is use case are accommodated or not, navigation errors and the presentation errors. Then selected function components are then unit tested. So unit testing is just like what we test in conventional testing. So we test the functional components, and navigation throughout the architecture is tested throughout the architecture. And web app is implemented in a variety of different environmental configuration. So need to understand the compatibility also. So compatibility of web app with each is assessed. So security tests then are conducted, because security you are going to the network, so you have to consider the security also. Then performance tests are conducted, because web app will be used by number of users. So web app is tested by a monitored group of selected end user looking for the content errors, looking for the navigation error, the usability concern, the compatibility issues, and the performance. And what are the process in web app testing? What do we do? First, we do the content testing, that is, we try to uncover content errors. Then the interface testing, we exercise the interaction mechanism and validate the aesthetic aspect of user interface. Then the navigation testing, the use case basis for design for test cases that would exercise each usage scenario against the navigation design, that is the integration testing. And the component testing, we exercise the web app content and functional units, that is the integration testing again here, and configuration testing. We try to attempt to uncover the errors traceable to specific client or server environment, configuration testing. And cross-reference table is quite useful in this case. Then the performance testing to assess what? The web app response time, the reliability under varying system loads, which web app components are responsible for system degradation, which is the most important one, how performance degradation impacts overall web app requirements. Then comes the security testing. Tests are designed to exploit the web app or environment vulnerabilities if they are, because they are susceptible to XSS, the SQL injection, and many other problems, attacks. So web testing task set. First, we review the stakeholders requirement. We establish priorities to ensure each user goal will be adequately tested. We make test plan for it. We define a web app testing strategy by describing the type of tests that we are going to conduct. We develop a test plan. We define a test schedule, first of all, and assign testing responsibilities. We specify the automated testing tools which are available like JUnit and LDRA. Most of we have open source options also. Then we define the acceptance criteria for each class of test. Then we specify defect tracking mechanism and we define problem reporting the mechanism. Then we perform the unit tests. How to perform the unit test? We review the content for syntax and semantic errors. We review the content for proper permissions. We test operation for interface mechanism and we test each component for proper function. We perform the integration test then, test interface semantics against the use cases, and then we conduct the navigation test. For configuration test, we assess the client-side compatibility and we assess the server-side configuration as well. Then the performance test and security tests are conducted. What are the objectives in content testing? Because we want to uncover syntactic errors in all medias like typographical error. Or we try to uncover semantic errors like the errors in completeness or accuracy. We find errors in organization or structure of the content presented to end user. What about the database testing? The original query must be checked to uncover errors in translating the user request to actual SQL. So the problems in communicating between the web app server and the database server need to be tested. We need to demonstrate the validity of the raw data sent from the database to the web app and the validity of transformation applied to the raw data. And we need to test validity of the dynamic content object, formats which are transmitted to the user, and the validity of the transformation to make the data visible to the user all time. In the user interface testing, the interface features are tested to ensure that the design rules, the aesthetics, and related visual content is available to user without error. And the individual interface mechanisms are tested using unit testing strategies. Each interface mechanism is tested in the context of a use case of navigation semantic unit and SU. That is, for example, a thread for a specific user category. How a user is going to check or how is your user going to use your web application. For that one, an SU is designed. So complete interface is tested against selected use cases and navigation semantic unit to uncover the interface semantic errors. And the interface is tested in a variety of environment to just ensure that the compatibility exists. The testable web mechanism, first we go for the links. Each link is listed and tested. Link. Forms. We check for the label, field navigation, data entry, error checking, data transmission, meaningful error messages. Then client-side scripting. The black box testing and compatibility test can be applied on the client-side scripting. Then the dynamic HTML, that is the correctness of the generated HTML which is shown to the user, and the compatibility test in the dynamic HTML. Then the client-side pop-up windows. The proper size and placement of pop-up, working controls, and consistency with appearance of web page. Then the streaming content. We want to demonstrate the existence, accuracy, and control over the content display. Then the streaming content. That means we want to demonstrate the existence, accuracy, and control over content display. And then the cookies. Cookies. We want to check that the server constructs cookie correctly. Cookie are transmitted correctly. And we ensure proper level of persistence for the cookies and check to see the web app attaches the correct cookie. And the application specific interface mechanism, of course. Then the usability testing. Here comes the interactivity, that is interaction mechanism. They are easy to understand and use. The layout, that is the navigation, content, and functions, allows user to find them quickly. And readability, that is the content is understandable or not. And the aesthetics, the graphic design supports they are easy to use or not. Then the display characteristics. Web app makes good use of screen size and resolution of varied scene size, and the time sensitivity. Content and features can be acquired in timely manner or not. Personalization, the adaptive interfaces, if any, and accessibility, special need users for them. Then the usability testing, it defines the set of usability testing categories. We define and identify goal for each. We design tests that will enable each goal to be evaluated, and we select participants to conduct the test. Then we instrument participants' interaction with the web app during the testing, and we develop method for assessing usability of the web app. In the compatibility testing, the goal is to uncover execution problem that can be traced to the configuration differences, compatibility. We define a set of commonly encountered client-side computing configurations and their variants, and we organize this information like the computing platform, the typical display devices, the operating system, the available users, and the connection speeds. And we derive compatibility validation test suite from existing interface tests, navigation tests, performance tests, and the security test. Then we come to the component level testing. We apply the black box and white box testing for each web app application. And useful test case design methods for this is equivalence partitioning, just like what we do in the conventional testing, the body value analysis, that is especially form field values, and path testing and forced error testing. In the syntactic navigation testing, we of course check for the links, the redirections, the bookmarks, the frame and frame sets, the sitemaps, and the internal search engines. In the semantic navigation testing, the NSU navigation semantic units are defined by a set of pathways that connect navigation nodes, and each NSU must allow a user from a defined user category achieve specific requirement defined by a use case. The testing needs to ensure that each path is executed in its entity without error, and every relevant path must be tested. User must be given guidance to follow or discontinue each path based on current location in sitemap. In the configuration testing of server side, the compatibility of web app with the server operating system, the correct file and directory creation by web app, and the security measure or security system measure do not degrade user service by web app, and testing web app with distributed server configuration, and web app properly whether it integrates with the database software or not. The correct execution of web app scripts which we have used, and examinating the system administrator errors for impact on web app, and on-site testing of proxy servers. The testing in the client side, we use the hardware, operating system, browser software, user interface components, plugins, and connectivity. The testable security elements also include the firewalls, the authentication, the authorization, and the encryption. In the load testing, we determine the combination of NTD that cause the performance to degrade. What this NTD means: N is the number of concurrent users, T is the number of online transactions per unit of time, T, and D is the data load processed by server per transaction. So the overall throughput is computed using the equation P is equal to NTD, N number of concurrent users, T number of online transaction per unit time, and D is the data load processed by server per transaction. The stress testing: does system degrade gracefully? We check for this. Are users made aware that they cannot reach the server? Does server queue resource requests during heavy demand and then process the queue when demand lessens? Are transactions lost as capacity is exceeded? Is data integrity affected when capacity is exceeded? And how long till system come back online after a failure? And are certain web apps functions discontinued as capacity? So this was about the testing of web application. I hope you got the whole complete idea about how can we go about web testing different aspects. Thank you so much.